Welcome to this complete retelling of George Orwell's masterpiece, Animal Farm, a story that begins as a simple tale about farm animals but unfolds into one of the most powerful political allegories ever written. Published in 1945, what you're about to hear is a cautionary fable about the futile quest for equality through political change, a story that exposes how noble revolutions can transform into the very tyrannies they sought to destroy. Set on a British farm, this satirical novel draws its inspiration from the Russian Revolution of 1917 and the rise of Stalin's Soviet Union. Through personified animal characters, Orwell reveals the universal dangers of totalitarian government and shows us how power, once gained, inevitably corrupts those who wield it. As we journey through this tale together, you'll meet unforgettable characters who represent real historical figures and political forces. You'll witness the birth of a revolution, the corruption of its ideals, and the tragic transformation of liberators into oppressors. This is more than just a story about animals. It's a mirror reflecting the darkest impulses of human nature and political power. So settle in and let me take you to Manor Farm, where a dream of equality is about to be born and die. Chapter 1. The Dream of Old Major. Our story begins on a cold March evening at Manor Farm, owned by Mr. Jones, a man more interested in drowning his troubles in alcohol than caring for his animals. As darkness falls across the English countryside, something extraordinary is happening in the big barn. Old Major, the farm's most respected boar, has called a meeting. This magnificent creature, 12 years old and still impressive despite his age, represents wisdom and revolution rolled into one. In the dim light of the barn, with animals gathering from every corner of the farm, Old Major is about to plant the seeds of rebellion. "Comrades," he begins, his voice carrying the weight of years and the fire of conviction. He tells them of a dream he's had, a vision of England where animals live free from human tyranny. For too long, he explains, animals have been enslaved, exploited, and slaughtered by their human masters. Man produces nothing, yet he consumes everything. He is the only creature that takes without giving back. The animals listen with growing excitement as Old Major introduces them to a revolutionary song called Beasts of England. The melody is haunting, the words stirring, speaking of a golden future when animals shall be free. As voices join together in this anthem of liberation, something powerful stirs in the barn, the dangerous, intoxicating spirit of revolution. But Old Major's speech contains a warning that will prove prophetic. Remember also that in fighting against man, we must not come to resemble him. These words will echo tragically through everything that follows. Just 3 days after this momentous meeting, Old Major dies peacefully in his sleep, but his ideas live on, nurtured by the farm's most intelligent animals, the pigs. Among these pigs, 2 stand out: Snowball, young and passionate, full of ideas and energy, and Napoleon, quieter, more calculating, with an intensity that makes other animals uneasy. Together with Squealer, a small pig with a gift for persuasive speech, they begin developing Old Major's teachings into a complete system of thought they call animalism. But even in these early days, the seeds of future conflict are being sown. Chapter 2. The rebellion begins. The revolution comes sooner than anyone expected, triggered not by grand planning but by Mr. Jones's neglect. After a particularly heavy drinking session, Jones stumbles to bed without feeding the animals. By the next evening, they are ravenous. Unable to bear their hunger any longer, the animals break into the store shed to feed themselves. When Jones and his men try to drive them back with whips, something snaps. The long-suppressed anger of years erupts into violence. In a whirlwind of fury, hooves and wings, the animals drive their human oppressors from the farm forever. The victory is so sudden, so complete, that the animals can hardly believe it. They tour the farmhouse in wonder, marveling at the luxury their labor has provided for their masters. But rather than claim these comforts for themselves, they decide that the farmhouse should remain a museum, a reminder of their former oppression. The pigs, being the most literate, take charge of organizing their new society. They paint 7 commandments on the barn wall, sacred laws that will govern their animal paradise. Whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. Whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. No animal shall wear clothes, no animal shall sleep in a bed, no animal shall drink alcohol, no animal shall kill any other animal. All animals are equal. The farm is renamed Animal Farm, and for a brief, shining moment, it seems that old Major's dream might actually come true. Chapter 3. The Golden Beginning. The first harvest under animal control exceeds everyone's wildest expectations. Without human laziness and incompetence holding them back, the animals work with unprecedented efficiency and enthusiasm. Every creature contributes according to their ability, from Boxer the mighty cart horse whose strength seems limitless, to the smallest hen who gives her eggs freely for the common good. Boxer becomes the embodiment of the revolutionary spirit, rising before dawn and working until darkness falls. His 2 mottos, "I will work harder" and "Napoleon is always right," inspire others and reveal his simple, trusting nature. Benjamin the donkey remains cynical, claiming that life is and always will be miserable. But even he cannot deny that things have improved. Molly the mare, vain and self-centered, complains about the loss of ribbons and sugar cubes, but she's quickly dismissed as a counter-revolutionary concern. The pigs establish themselves as the intellectual leaders, organizing committees and classes. Snowball throws himself into these educational efforts with boundless energy, teaching animals to read and write. He organizes egg production committees, clean tails leagues, and wild comrades re-education committees. Most animals manage to learn the alphabet to some degree, though few master reading entirely. The sheep, being the least intelligent, cannot grasp the 7 commandments' complexity, so Snowball reduces the principles to a single, simple maxim they can chant: 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. This simplification troubles some animals, but Snowball assures them that it captures the essential spirit of animalism. Every Sunday, the animals hold meetings in the big barn to debate farm policy. Snowball and Napoleon present their ideas, but they never agree on anything. If Snowball proposes planting barley in the big field, Napoleon demands oats. If Napoleon suggests defending the farm by building walls, Snowball insists that the best defense is to spread rebellion to other farms. Their debates are passionate and intelligent, but they create an undercurrent of tension that grows stronger each week. Chapter 4. The First Test. Word of the Animal Farm rebellion spreads to neighboring farms, creating panic among human farmers. Mr. Pilkington of Foxwood Farm and Mr. Frederick of Pinchfield Farm find themselves in the awkward position of wanting to see Animal Farm fail, while secretly fearing that success might inspire their own animals to rebel. They spread rumors about the farm's chaos and failure, claiming that animals are cannibalizing each other and practicing strange rituals. But they also begin plotting to reclaim the farm by force. The first test comes in early October when Jones, supported by men from the neighboring farms, attempts to retake his property in what becomes known as the Battle of the Cowshed. Snowball, who has studied military tactics in books found in the farmhouse, brilliantly orchestrates the farm's defense. The battle unfolds with precision and courage. Snowball leads the first line of defense, drawing the humans into the farmyard where Boxer and the other large animals can strike with maximum effect. Boxer's strength proves devastating. His iron-shod hooves split a farmhand's skull, causing the gentle giant to worry that he's killed a human being. "I have no wish to take life, not even human life," Boxer says, revealing the moral complexity that even revolutionary violence creates. The animals' victory is complete and decisive. Jones flees once again, and the animals celebrate their success with parades and speeches. Snowball, wounded in the battle, is declared a hero. They establish awards for bravery and decide to hold an annual celebration of their victory. But victory in war often plants the seeds of future conflicts, and the Battle of the Cowshed establishes Snowball as a military hero, a fact that does not escape Napoleon's attention. Chapter 5. The Struggle for Power. As winter sets in, the philosophical differences between Snowball and Napoleon evolve into a bitter power struggle that will determine Animal Farm's future. Their conflict reaches its climax over Snowball's proposal to build a windmill that would generate electricity for the farm. Snowball's vision is grand and inspiring. The windmill would power electric lights, heating, and machinery, reducing the animals' labor and improving their lives dramatically. He delivers passionate speeches about progress and modernization, painting pictures of a technological paradise where animals would work only 3 days a week. Napoleon opposes the windmill with equal fervor, though his arguments are more practical and pessimistic. The farm's immediate needs, he argues, are more pressing than grand technological schemes. Food and defense should take priority over dreams of electric lights and heated stalls. The debates consume the farm's energy and divide the animals into factions. Most find themselves drawn to Snowball's inspiring rhetoric, but some appreciate Napoleon's practical concerns. During this period, Napoleon begins implementing a strategy that will prove decisive. Months earlier, he took 9 newborn puppies from their mothers, claiming he would be responsible for their education. Now those puppies have grown into fierce dogs, trained in secret and loyal only to Napoleon. The decisive moment comes during a Sunday meeting when the animals are about to vote on the windmill proposal. Snowball delivers one of his most persuasive speeches, and it seems certain that the vote will go his way. But just as the animals prepare to voice their decision, Napoleon stands up. He emits a high-pitched whimper, a sound none of the animals have heard before. Suddenly, 9 enormous dogs burst into the barn, heading straight for Snowball. These are the puppies Napoleon took, now fully grown and trained as his personal enforcers. Snowball races for his life, with the dogs snapping at his heels. He escapes through a hole in the hedge and is never seen on Animal Farm again. In one swift, violent act, Napoleon eliminates his rival and demonstrates the new reality of power on Animal Farm. Chapter 6. The New Order. With Snowball eliminated, Napoleon quickly consolidates his control. He announces that the Sunday meetings will be abolished, replacing democratic discussion with orders issued by a committee of pigs led by himself. When some animals protest, Squealer explains that this change is actually for their own good. Debates were wasteful and confusing, and now decisions can be made more efficiently. In a stunning reversal, Napoleon announces that the windmill will be built after all. But Squealer now claims that the windmill was actually Napoleon's idea originally. Snowball had stolen the plans and pretended they were his own innovation. This rewriting of history becomes a regular feature of life under Napoleon's rule. The windmill project proves to be backbreaking work. The animals must break limestone into building stones using primitive tools, hauling massive blocks up steep slopes through summer heat and winter cold. Their food rations are reduced to fund construction materials, but Squealer's statistics always prove that they're eating more than ever before. As conditions worsen, Napoleon begins establishing relationships with the human world that old Major had declared to be the enemy. He hires Mr. Whymper, a lawyer, to act as an intermediary for trade with neighboring farms. The animals watch uneasily as this human visitor comes and goes, knowing that their revolution was supposed to eliminate such contact forever. The pigs gradually move into the farmhouse, justifying this by claiming they need a quiet place to work on important intellectual tasks. When some animals remember that sleeping in beds was forbidden by one of the 7 commandments, they discover that the commandment now reads, "No animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets." Squealer explains that a bed is simply a place to sleep, and what they had really meant to forbid was the decadent practice of sleeping with sheets, like humans. These subtle changes in the commandments become a pattern, with the pigs modifying the rules whenever their behavior conflicts with the original revolutionary principles. Chapter 7. The Windmill Falls. Disaster strikes when a violent storm destroys the half-completed windmill. The animals awake to find their months of labor reduced to rubble, scattered stones marking the death of their dreams. Napoleon immediately declares that Snowball has sabotaged the windmill, returning in the night to destroy it. He sentences the absent Snowball to death and offers a reward for his capture. From this point forward, every misfortune on the farm is blamed on Snowball's secret sabotage, creating a climate of paranoia and suspicion. Food becomes increasingly scarce as winter progresses, but Napoleon maintains the fiction of prosperity through careful management of information. When external visitors come to inspect the farm, empty food bins are filled with sand and topped with grain to create an illusion of abundance. The situation becomes desperate enough that Napoleon agrees to sell 400 eggs per week to the human market. The hens, horrified at having their offspring sold, stage a rebellion by laying their eggs in the barn rafters where they smash on the stone floor below. Napoleon responds by cutting off their food rations entirely. Several hens die before the others surrender, providing a grim lesson about the consequences of resistance. The rebuilding of the windmill proceeds amid these hardships, with the animals working longer hours for less food. Napoleon seldom appears in public, communicating through written orders and becoming an increasingly remote and mysterious figure. The other pigs surround him with ceremony and protocol, referring to him as our leader, Comrade Napoleon, and attributing almost supernatural qualities to his leadership. Chapter 8. Terror and Betrayal. Napoleon's transformation into a dictator accelerates as he begins using Stalin's most infamous tactic, the show trial. He stages public confessions where animals are forced to admit to crimes they never committed, usually involving collaboration with the hated Snowball. The trials follow a terrifying pattern. Napoleon's dogs grab suspected animals and drag them before the assembly. Under interrogation and torture, the victims confess to elaborate conspiracies, poisoning wells, destroying equipment, plotting with Snowball to overthrow Napoleon's government. After their confessions, the dogs immediately execute them. The farm runs red with blood as neighbor turns against neighbor. Animals confess to meetings with Snowball that never occurred, to sabotage they never committed, to treasonous thoughts they never harbored. The atmosphere of terror becomes so intense that many animals confess simply to escape the psychological torture of suspicion. Boxer, the most loyal animal on the farm, nearly becomes a victim when the dogs try to implicate him in a conspiracy, but his immense strength saves him. Even Napoleon's dogs cannot overpower the mighty horse, and they eventually back down. This incident reveals both Boxer's continued integrity and his growing danger to Napoleon's regime. After each round of executions, Napoleon modifies the sixth commandment. What once read, "No animal shall kill any other animal," now reads, "No animal shall kill any other animal without cause." The animal's memories are hazy enough that many accept Squealer's assurance that this was always the wording. The completed windmill is finally finished and named Napoleon Mill in honor of their leader, but their celebration is short-lived as Napoleon announces the sale of a valuable timber lot to Mr. Frederick, the cruel owner of the adjacent farm. Frederick arrives with what appears to be payment in full, but the money proves to be counterfeit. The next morning, he returns with armed men who invade the farm and dynamite the windmill, reducing months of labor to rubble once again. The animals fight back in what becomes known as the Battle of the Windmill, but the victory is costly. Many animals are wounded or killed, and their beloved windmill is destroyed. Napoleon declares a great victory, but the animals understand that they have gained nothing and lost much. Chapter 9. The Death of Loyalty. In the aftermath of the battle, the pigs discover a case of whiskey in the farmhouse cellar and proceed to drink themselves into a stupor. The next morning, Squealer announces that Napoleon is dying and, as his final act, has declared the consumption of alcohol punishable by death. But Napoleon recovers quickly, and soon the pigs are not only drinking regularly, but have learned to brew their own alcohol. The fifth commandment mysteriously changes from "No animal shall drink alcohol" to "No animal shall drink alcohol to excess." The farm's economy continues to improve, but only the pigs benefit from this prosperity. Napoleon fathers 31 piglets and announces plans to build a schoolhouse exclusively for young pigs. He creates elaborate ceremonies and spontaneous demonstrations where animals march around celebrating their achievements, distracting them from their declining conditions. Through all these changes, Boxer remains the farm's most dedicated worker. Despite his advancing age, he continues rising before dawn and working past sunset, driven by his simple faith that hard work will eventually create the paradise Old Major promised. But Boxer's strength finally fails him. While hauling stones for yet another construction project, he collapses, his lung damaged beyond repair. Napoleon promises to send him to the veterinary hospital in town for treatment, and the animals are touched by this apparent concern for their hardest worker. Benjamin the donkey, however, can read better than most animals, and when the van comes to collect Boxer, he reads the writing on its side: Alfred Simmons, horse slaughterer and glue boiler. Boxer, the most loyal animal on the farm, is being sold for slaughter. The animals chase the van desperately, shouting for Boxer to escape, but his strength is gone and the van disappears down the road. Squealer later claims that Boxer died peacefully at the hospital, his last words expressing devotion to Napoleon and Animal Farm, but the animals know the truth. Napoleon uses the money from Boxer's slaughter to purchase another case of whiskey for the pigs, adding insult to the injury of betrayal. Chapter 10: The Final Transformation. Years pass and the farm's population increases, but few animals remember the original rebellion. Most of the animals who participated in the revolution are dead, replaced by new generations who know only Napoleon's version of history. Material conditions remain harsh for ordinary animals despite technological improvements and increased productivity. The windmill has been rebuilt and provides some conveniences, but the promises of leisure and prosperity remain unfulfilled for everyone except the pigs. One day, Squealer appears to teach the sheep a new chant. Where they once bleated, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, they now declare 4 legs good, 2 legs better. The reason becomes clear when the pigs emerge from the farmhouse walking on their hind legs, carrying whips and wearing clothes. The transformation is so shocking that the other animals stand in stunned silence. The creatures they once followed in revolution against human tyranny have become indistinguishable from their former oppressors. Looking at the barn wall where the 7 commandments once stood, the animals find that all the original rules have been replaced with a single principle. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. This Orwellian contradiction captures the complete corruption of the revolution's ideals. Equality has been redefined to justify inequality, and the language itself has been twisted to serve power rather than truth. The final scene. The novel reaches its climax with a dinner party that Napoleon hosts for the neighboring human farmers. As the other animals peer through the farmhouse windows, they watch pigs and humans seated together around the same table, sharing drinks and jokes. Napoleon announces that Animal Farm will be renamed Manor Farm, returning to its original name. He declares that references to comrade will be eliminated and that the flag will be changed to remove revolutionary symbols. The farm, he explains, has matured beyond its youthful radicalism and is ready to take its place in the normal commercial world. The human farmers congratulate Napoleon on his efficient management techniques. They're particularly impressed by how he's managed to make animals work harder for less food than they ever achieved. They toast to their mutual prosperity and shared methods of controlling workers. As the evening progresses and the alcohol flows, a dispute arises over a card game. Accusations of cheating fly across the table and voices rise in anger. The animals watching from outside see pigs and humans shouting at each other, their faces flushed with rage and alcohol. In that moment, as the animals look from pig to man and from man to pig, they realize they can no longer tell them apart. The revolution has come full circle and the oppressed have become the oppressors. Conclusion: the warning lives on. And so ends George Orwell's masterpiece, not with triumph or tragedy in the traditional sense, but with the quiet horror of recognition. The animals' revolution began with the noblest intentions: equality, freedom, and justice for all. Yet it ended with a tyranny more complete and cynical than the one it replaced. Orwell's genius lies in showing us how this transformation occurs not through a single dramatic betrayal, but through a series of small compromises, each rationalized as necessary for the greater good. The commandments change gradually, history is rewritten incrementally, and before anyone realizes what has happened, the revolution's ideals have been completely inverted. This is not simply a story about the Russian Revolution or Stalin's Soviet Union, though those events inspired it. It's a warning about the universal human tendency toward corruption when power is concentrated in the hands of a few. It shows us how noble ideals can be perverted, how language can be manipulated to serve power, and how the masses can be deceived even when the evidence of their deception surrounds them. The characters we've met represent eternal political types. Old Major, the visionary whose dreams outlive him. Snowball, the idealistic reformer destroyed by his more ruthless rival. Napoleon, the opportunist who cloaks his ambition in revolutionary rhetoric. Squealer, the propagandist who makes lies sound like truth. Boxer, the loyal worker whose devotion is rewarded with betrayal. And Benjamin, the cynic whose wisdom comes too late to matter. Perhaps most importantly, Animal Farm reminds us that freedom cannot be achieved once and then forgotten. It requires constant vigilance, active participation, and the courage to speak truth to power even when that truth is uncomfortable. The animals' final realization that they cannot distinguish between their pig leaders and their human oppressors serves as Orwell's ultimate warning. When we stop paying attention to how power is exercised in our name, when we accept easy answers to complex questions, when we allow others to think for us, we risk losing the very freedoms we believe we're protecting. The story ends in despair, but Orwell's purpose was not to discourage resistance to tyranny. Instead, he wanted to arm us with knowledge, to help us recognize the warning signs of creeping authoritarianism before it's too late to resist. In our modern world, with its own struggles against misinformation, propaganda, and the abuse of power, Animal Farm's lessons remain as urgent as ever. The book stands as an eternal reminder that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance, and that our greatest enemies may not come as obvious villains, but as those who claim to be our saviors. As you reflect on this story, remember Old Major's warning that proved so prophetic. In fighting against man, we must not come to resemble him. The greatest tragedy of Animal Farm is not that the animals failed to defeat their human oppressors, but that in trying to do so, they became exactly what they had fought against. The revolution failed not because it was impossible, but because the revolutionaries forgot that the means we use to achieve our ends ultimately determine what those ends become. Power corrupts, but it corrupts most completely when we convince ourselves that our corruption serves a higher purpose. This is George Orwell's gift to us. Not just a story, but a warning. Not just entertainment, but education. Not just literature, but a tool for understanding and preserving the freedom that makes such literature possible. The animals of Manor Farm could not tell pig from man in the end. The question Orwell leaves us with is this: will we be able to tell the difference when it matters most?